And blessed to be done with COVID. Madam Secretary, would you please introduce our agenda this morning?
Good morning to you and good morning, commissioners. For today's meeting, you will hear 3 items for your consideration. First, you will consider a notice of inquiry to promote more efficient use of spectrum through improved receiver interference immunity performance, thereby facilitating the introduction of new and innovative services. Second, you will consider a further notice of proposed rulemaking seeking comment on proposals to strengthen the effectiveness of wireless emergency alerts, including through public reporting on the reliability, speed, and accuracy of these alerts. Third, you will consider an enforcement action. Please note items 3 and 4 listed on the Commission's April 14th Sunshine Notice, both restricted adjudicatory matters from the Media Bureau, have been adopted by the Commission and deleted from today's agenda. The first item on your agenda is entitled Improving Receiver Performance and will be presented by the Office of Engineering and Technology. Ron Rapazzi, Acting Chief of the Office, will give the introduction.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mr. Rapazzi, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and good morning. Good morning to the Commissioners. OET is pleased to present for your consideration a notice of inquiry that takes a fresh look at the role of receiver performance in the Commission's spectrum management responsibilities, with the goal of facilitating new opportunities for our nation's valuable spectrum resources. As spectrum use across radio frequencies becomes more intensive and services are packed more closely together, Commission spectrum management policies must consider potential efficiencies across all aspects of wireless systems, looking not just at transmitters, but at receivers as well. While the Commission has long relied on rules establishing particular transmitter requirements to promote spectrum efficiency and more intensive use, receiver performance can also significantly affect the Commission's ability to introduce new wireless services. In particular, receivers without sufficient interference immunity performance can limit possibilities for innovative spectrum uses that drive economic growth, competition, security, and innovation. Paul Murray, Associate Chief in OET, will present the item.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. It's so good to see you in person. The notice of inquiry before you seeks to develop a comprehensive, up-to-date record on the role of receivers in spectrum management that will inform the Commission on how it might best promote improvements in receiver performance where and as appropriate that would serve the public interest. As background for the inquiry, the Commission notes various of its proceedings over the years that have directly addressed receiver concerns. It also highlights various reports, studies, and recommendations, including several of the white papers written by the Commission's own Technological Advisory Council, TAC, that have been proffered in recent years concerning improvements in receivers and the kinds of possible actions the Commission might consider. The inquiry itself begins by underscoring the critical role of improved receiver interference immunity performance and the role it can play as part of an overall strategy and approach to more effective spectrum management, one that, by enabling more efficient spectrum use, will facilitate the introduction of new and innovative wireless services that benefit the American public. The NOI is broad-ranging. It explores various receiver performance parameters, such as receiver selectivity, sensitivity, dynamic range, shielding, and signal processing, that can be interrelated and can help achieve improved receiver performance. It invites up-to-date information on the radio frequency environments in which various radio services operate. The NOI also requests specific information on the technical characteristics associated with both transmitters and receivers that are operating across the RF spectrum. This information could serve to inform various possible approaches the Commission as well as interested stakeholders, can take to more effectively address potential harmful interference concerns that could arise. And this is increasingly important as the RF environment continues to change, and different services increasingly must operate closer to each other in adjacent and nearby frequency bands. Next, the NOI turns to various possible approaches or combination of approaches that the Commission could consider to promote improved receiver interference immunity performance. First, it requests up-to-date information on voluntary industry-led approaches. Second, the NOI examines potential Commission policy guidance, including whether the Commission should establish clearer expectations about receiver performance given the increasingly crowded RF environment. The NOI also extensively explores whether the Commission should consider an interference limits policy, such as a harm claim threshold approach, which could build on earlier TAC white papers on such an approach. And third, the NOI considers the role of receiver performance mandates for those situations in which other approaches may not be sufficient. In addition, the Commission seeks comment on several topics related to the various approaches discussed. These include promoting innovation in the marketplace, addressing legacy receivers where transition to receivers with improved performance is deemed appropriate, and the costs and benefits of improved receiver performance. Finally, the Commission invites comment on its legal authority to promote receiver performance. In sum, the notice of inquiry before you seeks to develop a comprehensive record to lay the foundation for informing the Commission as it considers possible approaches to promote better receiver performance as part of improved and more effective spectrum management in the coming years. Staff recommends adoption of the item and requests editorial privileges solely for technical and conforming edits. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear comments from the bench, and we'll start with Commissioner Carr.
Thanks. Over the past few years, the FCC made great strides in freeing up spectrum, and those steps proved key to powering America's 5G leadership. 2.5 gigahertz, 3.45, 3.5, 4.9, the L-band, 5.9, 6 gigahertz, and the C-band, to name more than a few. It's no secret that much of this work involved identifying spectrum that was previously assigned to federal users and opening it up to consumer use. But physically occupying an assigned spectrum band is not the only way that federal users or other incumbents can prevent a valuable swath of airwaves from being put to its highest and best use. One other way is through receivers that listen in on frequencies that are beyond their assigned bands. This is far from a theoretical problem, and we see it rather frequently when it comes to federal users, among others. Take the L-band. This is a valuable stretch of spectrum in the 1 gigahertz range that has been effectively sitting on the sidelines for over 10 years now. There's no 5G there right now, despite the FCC authorizing it, and the band having a great mix of coverage and propagation characteristics. Why is that? Well, when you take the federal users' public arguments and boil them down to their essence, it comes down to a disagreement over how much interference federal devices experience when they listen into a spectrum band located far, far away from their assigned frequencies. We're seeing something similar with the federal government's arguments in the C-band. While the FCC's expert engineering team determined that there's no harmful interference in either of those cases, that entire time-consuming effort might have been avoided if more efficient receiver standards were in place. Otherwise, our innovative use cases of the future are going to be constrained and limited by potentially decades-old and inefficient standards. And that's where today's NOI could make a real difference. So I want to commend Commissioner Simington in particular on his leadership and for his early interest in tackling this issue. It's not the easiest of areas to cut through. Indeed, when the FCC launched a similar inquiry all the way back in 2003, many predicted that spectrum management would become more difficult as the airwaves became more crowded due to the proliferation of wireless services. Flash forward nearly 20 years, and this prediction has certainly come to pass. So I'm hopeful that working together we can make good progress on this issue this time around. I think we're off to a really good start. I'm very pleased that Chairwoman Rosenworcel and Commissioner Simington have worked closely to advance this NOI. If we get it right, it has the potential to unlock tremendous value for consumers. And finally, I want to thank the staff from OET for preparing this item today. Great to see you again in person, and the NOI has my support. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Carr. Now we will hear from Commissioner Starks.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. This notice of inquiry has been a long time coming. Nearly 20 years ago, the Commission took its first hard look at addressing the issue of receiver performance. Unfortunately, a wide variety of factors ultimately caused that proceeding to close without final action. 10 years later, there was another attempt at the issue of receiver performance, but once again, no final FCC action, even as our spectrum demands grew. This continued surge in spectrum usage has brought us here today. And it's high time to reopen our inquiry into a whole-of-system approach to spectrum management. As today's NOI rightly emphasizes, we have always had the authority to regulate interference between stations. While it's well established that this authority reaches transmitters, it's time to focus on receivers as well. In fact, the onus of protection we have placed on transmitters is hard to continue to justify. Borrowing the analogy of Pierre de Vries, if we compare the receiver performance issue to a neighborhood dispute, we've spent the past 2 decades forcing homeowners to speak in no more than a whisper to avoid disturbing their neighbors. That's not fair. From my perspective, broadening our focus to encompass receiver performance could also have significant benefits for national security, public safety, and of course, competition. As it stands, our markets are flooded with inexpensive receiving devices, many designed and manufactured overseas. While these devices may be functional, they could be susceptible not only to unintentional interference, but also to nefarious interference, events like jamming and spoofing. Fortunately, this issue might be mitigated, if not remedied, by improvements in receiver performance. To that end, I'm grateful my colleagues agreed to my request to include language in the NOI seeking comments on this issue. Of course, to realize these benefits, it's imperative as well to strike a regulatory balance that favors innovation. Overly sensitive receivers may limit spectrum usage, but overly prescriptive standards might stifle receiver innovation and ultimately do more harm than good. It is, of course, a counterfactual, but what if our historic approach towards wireless use and transmitter equipment authorizations has, in some measure, stifled that innovation? So what's the best approach to encourage innovation for both receivers and transmitters? I'm glad the NOI now includes these questions. It won't be easy, and federal agency coordination remains a critical part of this mission. We can only move forward on the issue of receiver performance if we act in collaboration, of course, with NTIA, since any action here will inevitably impact the interests of federal agencies and their stakeholders. Emerging technologies will continue to run up against interference concerns of incumbents, as our experiences in the C-band, L-band, and 6 gigahertz band have shown. There is, of course, room for improvement. And for this proceeding to succeed, we must seek those common sense solutions and buy-in from all key actors, including our federal partners. Today's NOI is a great first step. I applaud everyone who brought it to this point, but in particular, I commend Commissioner Simington for his leadership here on this topic and the chairwoman for prioritizing it within the agency. I'd also like to thank the innumerable supporters from both within and without the FCC who have kept this issue of receiver performance alive over the past 2 decades. Much of their work is rightfully recognized and highlighted in the NOI itself, and all of that credit is richly deserved. I look forward to the thoughtful comments generated on this topic and the progress that we can all achieve alongside our federal and commercial partners. Many thanks to OET for their hard work on this proceeding. It will have my support. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Simington.
Thank you. Radio frequency regulation in the United States emerged from the regulation of radio communication to and from seafaring vessels in 1910. At that time, there were actual oceans of physical space between ships and, of course, metaphorical oceans of spectrum available for radio communications. The regulatory approaches were greenfield, the margins for error were wide, and spectral efficiency was not a concern, or in some cases technically possible. By the time President Franklin Roosevelt signed the Communications Act into law 24 years later, commercial spectrum was still comparatively roomy. Sure, there were a few hundred radio stations, and one-to-one radio communications had grown more spectrum intensive, but there was still plenty of space to, as it were, spread out. And since the Communications Act was adopted, our regulations have, more or less, reflected the idea that spectrum is fundamentally abundant and that mitigating interference and maximizing spectral efficiency is about spreading spectrum users out, whether geographically or in radio frequency. Even as spectrum use has intensified, legacy services and non-spectrum activities dependent upon such services have grown up in reliance on past allocations. But the era of abundant spectrum is coming to a close. Like real estate, they just aren't making any more of it. The future is dense spectral neighborhoods of commercial users packed tightly in space and in spectrum, vying for every last hertz of usable real estate. We should think of RF spectrum as fully occupied land whose usage must inevitably intensify, and our regulatory philosophy must accommodate this new reality. The notice of inquiry we adopt today does just that. It asks what I view as the critical questions that must be answered if we're to prevent a spectral famine. How should the Commission allocate spectral rights? How should the Commission adjudicate spectral disputes? And how can the Commission treat the receive side of RF systems? It is time that our spectral rights framework becomes certain, and it is time that our regulatory approach goes duplex. This NOI is the Commission's first step at exploring a new policy framework for commercial spectrum that takes these questions into account. And we must. To proceed with the status quo risks stymieing innovative technologies that require intensive use of spectrum adjacent to incumbent commercial allocations. And potentially worse, it risks the regular recurrence of spectral disputes arising from implicit easements on valuable commercial spectrum, reflecting ambiguous rights and adjudicative authority. The costs of this uncertainty are sometimes diffuse and sometimes acute, but they're always too high. FCC spectrum policy must clearly and precisely define spectrum rights, both in band and at band edges, and those rights must reflect efficient receiver performance where that is a reasonable goal. This is the only framework truly capable of accommodating the interests of not only industry incumbents and future commercial users, but also that stands as a model for federal users. As I've argued before, we cannot afford the next C-band fight, wherever in the allocation table it might be. This item takes a first step toward foreclosing that eventuality. There are a few ways to get to a full duplex regulatory philosophy from where we are now, and today's notice of inquiry explores them all, from defining harm claim threshold rights for commercial users, to issuing policy statements on the Commission's general approach, to defining receiver parameters in narrow cases. This notice of inquiry is held up by both belt and suspenders, and I believe the public comment to follow will be robust, clarifying, and informative as a result. My office has been thinking about this topic for some time, and we are deeply indebted to Chairwoman Rosenworcel for her energetic collaboration and ultimate introduction of this item. We have also massively benefited from the Office of Engineering and Technology for their diligent work in drafting the item, as well as from the expertise of subject matter experts throughout industry and academia. And of course, I'm honored and humbled by my colleagues' comments. But I'd like to specifically thank everyone who participated in or helped inform the FCC's Technological Advisory Council when it was studying these questions. But I'd be deeply remiss if I failed to specifically acknowledge two special contributors to my office's understanding of the issues and development of conviction around these issues. The first is J.P. DeVries, whose work on all things spectrum, including especially harm claim thresholds, has evolved my own thinking on the topic to a very great degree. And the second is Dale Hatfield, who used to head our own OET. It will probably surprise no one when I say that an hour's conversation with Dale can yield a year of technical agenda. I've shamelessly pilfered his brilliant ideas and intend with any luck to steal many more, so thank you very much, Dale, and I'm proud to support this item.
Thank you, commissioners. Wireless spectrum is a scarce resource, but when we put this limited resource to creative use, we can expand communications for all, foster innovation, and support our economic and national security. Our history is full of examples of us doing just that. It's why in the United States, our spectrum policies have long led the wireless world. After all, it was nearly 3 decades ago that the FCC took the academic ideas of Ronald Coase and ushered in a whole new era of spectrum auctions. We also pioneered the use of unlicensed spectrum, the airwaves we now know and use every day as Wi-Fi. More recently, we blazed a trail for two-sided incentive auctions and dynamic spectrum sharing. With each of these efforts, We took spectrum scarcity and turned it into abundance. We need to do it again. Today, more of our civic and commercial life relies on wireless technologies than ever before. Commercial spectrum bands, though, are increasingly crowded. This congestion is making it harder to make room in our skies for new technologies and new services. But we have to find a way, because no one wants all that opportunity and innovation to grind to a halt. Moreover, staying in the same place and doing the same things we have done before is not what led us to lead in the past. It won't work in the future either. We need to do things differently on two fronts. First, we need smarter coordination. Earlier this year, I announced a new spectrum coordination initiative with Assistant Secretary Alan Davidson at the NTIA. This initiative involves more high-level meetings on spectrum issues, updating the 20-year-old Memorandum of Understanding between the two agencies, developing a national spectrum strategy, recommitting to scientific integrity and evidence-based policymaking, and revamping technical collaboration. I'm proud to say we've already made terrific progress in a short time. Second, we need smarter policies. To put a finer point on it, we need policies that promote more efficient use of our scarce resource. Call it a wireless abundance agenda. An abundance agenda needs a target, so we are starting with today's inquiry into wireless receiver standards. Here's why. Most discussions of spectrum efficiency are a one-way effort. They focus almost exclusively on transmitters. To avoid harmful interference, we typically have rules about how and when transmitters can operate. But wireless communication systems involve transmitters and receivers. It's a two-way proposition. Both are vital, both matter. So we need to rethink our approach to spectrum policy and move beyond just transmitters and consider receivers too. That's because receivers that are not sufficiently resilient can make it more difficult to introduce additional services into the same or adjacent airwaves. They can diminish the spectral environment and shut out new uses before they even begin. There is too little in our existing spectrum policies that recognizes this truth. There is also too little that incentivizes users or manufacturers to invest in better quality receivers. But as we expand the use of our airwaves and wrestle with different uses in adjacent spectrum, we need to give full consideration to the role of reception technology. And of course, that's where today's inquiry comes in. We survey the field. We ask about earlier studies of this issue by industry, academia, and the NTIA, as well as the FCC's own technical and legal experts, including the work of our Technological Advisory Council. We ask about different approaches, voluntary industry-led efforts, incentive systems, high-level principles, and policy statements. We explore harm claim thresholds. And then we ask about the 2013 Presidential Memorandum on Wireless Innovation that encouraged the development of a program of performance criteria and ratings and the consideration of spectrum efficiency in federal procurements. Think of it as purchasing policy at scale. We also asked about a rules-based approach and about our authority to clarify expectations about future receiver performance. And we seek comment on the very real challenges implementing these policies might entail and what impact they might have on receiver innovation and cost. I look forward to the record that develops. I look forward to once again turning spectrum scarcity into abundance. In short, I look forward to making progress. Now, I want to thank Commissioner Simington, who, as we all know, expressed interest in doing more to address receiver quality. He dug in deep, reviewed all the literature, and today's effort is informed by his work and enthusiasm for this subject. I also want to thank the staff who worked on this effort, including Baman Badapur, David Duarte, Pat Foster, Michael Ha, Syed Hassan, Ira Keltz, Paul Murray, Nick Oris, Bob Pavlak, Siobhan Philemon, Jameson Prime, Ron Rapazzi, and Tom Struble of the Office of Engineering and Technology. Kenneth Baker, Linda Chang, Lloyd Coward, Thomas DeRenge, Carman Edamad, Jessica Griffinius, Kerry Hicks, Tim McGuire, Madeline Mayer, Charles Mathias, Susan Mort, Roger Noel, Matthew Pearl, Paul Powell, Kambiz Ranavardi, Blaise Cinto, Joel Taubenblatt, Jennifer Thompson, Janet Young of the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau, Rachel Kazan, Evan Quarrell, Paul LaFontaine, Kate Matraves, Chuck Needy, and Emily Talaga of the Office of Economics and Analytics, Jennifer Gilsonon, Dante Ibarra, Wayne Layton, Kathy O'Brien, and Jim Schlichting of the International Bureau, Jeremy Marcus and Ashley Tyson of the Enforcement Bureau, and Deborah Broderson, Doug Klein, David Horowitz, and Bill Richardson of the Office of General Counsel. It is an all-hands effort. We will proceed to a vote on the item. Commissioner Carr.
Approve.
Commissioner Starks.
Approve.
Commissioner Simington.
Approve.
And the chair votes aye. The item is adopted with editorial privileges as requested. Madam Secretary, please announce the next item on today's agenda.
Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners, the second item on your agenda will be presented by the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau and is titled Wireless Emergency Alerts, Amendment of Part 11 of the Commission's Rules Regarding the Emergency Alert System. Nikki McGinnis, Deputy Chief of the Bureau, will give the introduction.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Ms. McGinnis, please proceed.
Good morning, Chairwoman Rosenworcel and Commissioners. Today we present a further notice of proposed rulemaking designed to build upon the success of wireless emergency alerts. This vital public safety tool was launched 10 years ago this month. I'm happy to report that currently 76 wireless providers voluntarily participate in the Wireless Emergency Alerts program, and over 600 emergency management agencies spread across the nation have issued these alerts. Taken together, these agencies have sent over 62,000 wireless emergency alerts during the past decade to warn the public about dangerous imminent threats such as tornadoes, hurricanes, and wildfires. The system is also used to transmit Amber Alerts, which request the public's help in locating missing or abducted children. In fact, during the 120 months since the launch of wireless emergency alerts, they have been credited with the recovery of 120 children. Quite simply, wireless emergency alerts save lives. To enhance and ensure the continued success of this system, this further notice proposes to require participating wireless providers to report on the performance of their wireless emergency alert service. To that end, the further notice seeks comment on whether reliability, speed, and accuracy are the most important metrics for evaluating performance. It also seeks comment on how providers should collect relevant data and report it to the Commission. And now to present today's item. With me today from the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau is James Wiley, Deputy Chief in the Bureau's Cybersecurity and Communications Reliability Division. I would like to thank the Bureau staff, as well as the other bureaus and offices who worked with us on this item. And now over to Mr. Wiley.
Thank you, Deputy Chief McGinnis. Good morning, Chairwoman Rosenworcel, and Commissioners. Wireless Emergency Alerts, or WEA, is a tool for authorized federal, state, and local emergency management agencies to send alerts and warnings to the public in a targeted geographic area by way of WEA-enabled mobile devices. In this item, we seek to build upon WEA's record of success so that federal, state, and local alerting authorities can confidently use WEA during emergencies where it can save lives. This will enable the public to use their mobile devices as preparedness tools and quickly take action upon receipt of a WEA alert. To this end, in this further notice, we propose to require participating wireless providers to report publicly on key performance metrics related to their WEA service and seek comment on the implementation of this proposal. In this regard, we seek comment on whether reliability, speed, and accuracy are the key performance metrics that would best help stakeholders understand WEA's performance. And we seek comment on how these performance metrics should be defined. We seek comment as well on the data that participating wireless providers would need to assess these performance metrics and on how they could best collect it. Specifically, we seek comment on the extent to which the data needed to measure WEA's performance is available to participating wireless providers as the WEA system is currently designed, and on any changes that may be needed to capture that data. We also seek comment on how participating wireless providers can best provide this information to the Commission and the public, including how participating wireless providers should submit WEA performance reports to the Commission and the frequency with which they should do so. We also seek comment on the extent to which participating wireless providers should make their data available to local emergency management agencies that request it. Finally, in light of our analysis of the system's performance during the 2021 nationwide WIA test, we seek comment on additional steps that participating wireless providers can take to improve WIA. In this regard, we seek comment on measures that participating wireless providers can take to improve the success rate at which the public receives WIA messages and reduce the incidence of duplicate alerts. We also seek comment on the extent to which mobile virtual network operators provide WIA to their subscribers, even though they generally do not formally participate in WIA. In sum, on WIA's 10th anniversary, the Commission takes action to help ensure that stakeholders have important information on this valuable tool for protecting lives and property, and seeks comment on ways that we can strengthen it even more. The Bureau recommends adoption of this further notice and requests editorial privileges for technical and conforming edits. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear comments from the bench. Commissioner Carr.
Thanks. Wireless emergency alerts save lives. From a National Weather Service warning about an approaching hurricane to Amber Alerts that bring a child home safely. In the past decade, emergency managers have sent nearly 63,000 alerts aimed at keeping the public safe. But an ineffective WIA system is no system at all. If emergency managers cannot count on the system to deliver their messages on time and to the intended area, or if the public loses trust in WIA's reliability, officials and the public will opt out. Even now, approximately 62% of authorized emergency management agencies have never used the WIA system. And a system that delivers few alerts to a dwindling audience becomes an afterthought rather than a life-saving tool. Last summer, I had the chance to meet with first responders and public safety officials that were actively fighting the fast-moving Dixie Fire, one of the largest wildfires in California history. The devastation was unimaginable. Take the small town of Greenville that needed to evacuate on very short notice, and only a little while later, it was entirely wiped out. I walked down the streets of Greenville just a day or so after the fire moved through. The paved roads crunched under your foot from baking in the fire's extreme heat. Melted aluminum flowed away from spots where cars used to sit. Houses were reduced to just crisscrossing rows of nails on the ground. The WIA system was designed for precisely this sort of emergency situation. When lives and property are at stake, when a large number of people need to receive instructions, and when time is of the essence. Yet for years, there have been reports that some officials in California chose not to use WIA because it lacks precise targeting. They feared the unintended consequences of alerting too many residents to evacuate. That's why the FCC must do all it can to ensure that the public safety officials know that they can rely on the system when it matters most. And that's why I'm pleased that Chairwoman Rosenworcel identified this issue and brought this item forward for a vote. Today's notice seeks comment on the proposal that participating mobile providers file public reports on WIA's reliability, speed, and accuracy in order to provide emergency management agencies with more detail on key WIA performance characteristics. But assessing the current state of play is only half the job, which is why I also support seeking comment on ways to improve WIA following the nationwide test in 2021. And I look forward to continuing to work with all stakeholders to ensure that this life-saving technology reaches its full potential. In closing, I want to thank the Public Safety Bureau for their hard work on this notice. It has my support.
Commissioner Starks.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The time is right for the FCC to move forward in developing a record on performance reporting and further improvements to the speed and reliability of the wireless emergency alerts. After all, one of the core purposes Congress identified in creating the FCC was to promote the safety of life and property through the use of wire and radio communication. For the past 10 years, wireless emergency alerts have been a tremendous innovation and one of the most important tools to warn the public about dangerous and critical situations using a consumer's mobile device. These messages, as we've heard, truly save lives through alerts such as a tornado or winter storm coming and reconnecting families through amber and silver alerts. But they're not perfect. Not everyone receives the alerts. They may be delivered outside of the targeted emergency area, or those who do receive them may not do so in a timely fashion, depriving recipients of those precious seconds to prepare in the case of an emergency. This is especially important for low-income and other high-risk individuals that disproportionately rely solely on their mobile devices for critical information and may reside in higher-risk communities. The good news is our wireless emergency alert system works. Following a 2021 nationwide test, the Commission found that approximately 90% of respondents received the test messages, and I received them within 2 minutes of transmission. That is fantastic, and I again credit the Commission staff and our outside partners on their work, but we cannot and must not rest until we are at 100%. We need to ensure that all eligible individuals within a target area are receiving these important alerts and receiving them as quickly as possible. In order to do that, we need to know how the various commercial mobile service partners that distribute the WIA alerts are performing. For example, what are the wireless emergency alerts' reliability, speed, accuracy? Only then can we further improve the alerts to ensure that everyone benefits from this valuable system. So I do support refreshing the record in this FNPRM to provide the Commission information and data necessary to continue to monitor and improve this important system. At the same time, I want to stress the need for interested stakeholders to actually participate in this proceeding. The Commission has twice already sought comment on similar proposals, but the record was far from robust. I don't want that to happen again. We need participants to help us craft the best possible system, and without those comments, our decision won't be as informed as it could be and should be. We also need stakeholders to comment on the various benefits and burdens of any performance reporting regime. We need to balance our very real need to have accurate information to improve the program with the need to ensure that any obligations do not disincentivize wireless and other providers from participating in this alert system. I'm thankful to the chairwoman for agreeing to my request to seek additional comment on the cost-benefit section as well. These changes will ensure that the Commission's Office of Economics and Analytics has the right information necessary to develop the proper cost-benefit analysis as the Commission weighs its options going forward. I look forward to the record and thank, of course, Public Safety for all their hard work. This item has my support.
Commissioner Simington.
Thank you. I'm really happy to support this item. Of all the issues it raises, perhaps the most concerning is that some jurisdictions have become hesitant to issue wireless emergency alerts because they have lost faith in the reliability and accuracy of the system. This alert system helps us find kidnapped children and keep people safe from violent and unpredictable natural disasters like floods, earthquakes, and tornadoes. It also serves as an important line of communication for the government during any kind of local or national emergency. This thorough further notice of proposed rulemaking will generate a vigorous record on how we can collect vital performance metrics so that we can identify where the system is falling short and how it can be improved. The proposed definitions of reliability, speed, and accuracy would measure the overall effectiveness of the system, not just any part of the chain. I'm also happy that we are looking closely at how any changes to the performance reporting requirements might implicate consumer privacy. Thank you to the Public Safety Bureau staff for their hard work on this, and I'm happy to support.
Thank you, Commissioners. Remember 2008? The smartphone era was just getting going. We were readying ourselves for the digital television transition. We had high hopes for social media. It was also the year that the Warning, Alert, and Response Network Act became the law of the land. The WARN Act, as it is known, kicked off an experiment. It took the traditional emergency alerts from radio and television and set up a similar system for wireless devices. This was just an idea. Smartphones were relatively new, and the law made participation totally voluntary. But Congress was onto something, because in the intervening years, mobile devices have moved from the periphery to the core of our lives. They are in our palms, pockets, and purses. They are with us always. They are also a fundamental feature of public safety communications. It took the FCC about 4 years after the WARN Act to really get wireless emergency alerts up and running. After all, it was not required, and getting wireless providers and device manufacturers to align their efforts took some time. But here we are now, marking the 10th anniversary of this program. What's become clear is that these alerts are no longer strictly an adjunct to the traditional radio and television alert system. They are a powerful tool in their own right. During the last decade, wireless emergency alerts have been used more than 62,000 times to warn the public about everything from missing children to devastating storms. And during the last 2 years, they have been used to even provide essential information about local government response to the pandemic. While our reliance on wireless emergency alerts has grown, our rules, honestly, they have not always kept pace. Right now, there's still a big disparity when it comes to the information we collect about how the nation's 2 emergency alerting platforms perform. For radio and television systems, we require participating broadcasters to file detailed reports after each nationwide test. But for wireless emergency alerts, we don't have any standard reporting. Under the law, participation may remain voluntary, but this system is now central to our emergency alerting efforts, and we lack a full understanding of when it works and when it does not. You know, I'm not the only one who thinks so. 2 years ago, the GAO recommended that the FCC develop performance measures to better monitor the performance of wireless emergency alerts. And just yesterday, Senator Bennett and Senator Hickenlooper wrote us noting that many public safety officials have expressed interest in getting better data about the reliability and accuracy of these alerts so that they can make more informed decisions about their use. This pandemic has made crystal clear just how important it is to have good data in an emergency. Accurate information is essential if we want to know what we need to do next. This is also true with wireless emergency alerts. If we want to know where to go with this system, we better understand it. That's why today we seek comment on how we can develop better data about the effectiveness of wireless emergency alerts. We propose performance reporting that would, for the very first time, give increased transparency into reliability, speed, and accuracy. We seek comment on how we can improve consistency, speed up the pace of alert receipt, and prevent unintentional duplication of alerts. Our proposals are based in part on data we collected coming out of the nationwide test of the emergency alert system and wireless emergency alerts that was conducted on August 11th, 2021. This test, as contemplated in the WARN Act, was led by the Federal Emergency Management Agency. But while they chose the test parameters, we did something that we've actually never done before at the FCC. We partnered with a broad mix of emergency management agencies to get a better look at wireless emergency alert performance. And that included the National Weather Service, the Alabama Emergency Management Authority, the Harris County Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management in Texas, the City of Los Angeles Emergency Management Department, New York City Emergency Management, the Mendocino County Office of Emergency Services in California, the Ohio Emergency Management Agency, the Oklahoma Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, the City of Philadelphia Office of Emergency Management, and the Utah Department of Public Safety. As a result of these partnerships, for the very first time, we had on-the-ground insights into what issues need broader attention and study. We learned that most recipients received the text message, but some went undelivered. There were also reports of duplicate messages, which could be confusing in a real emergency. So the proposals in the rulemaking we adopt here build on what we learned and provide a pathway for better data and monitoring in the future. Now, consistent with that effort, today we're also doing something else. We are issuing a public notice seeking more public safety partnerships for additional end-to-end wireless emergency alert performance testing that we hope to have this summer. These tests are going to be designed to measure the performance of local alerts with enhanced geo-targeting. I look forward to expanding the range of public safety authorities we work with on this initiative while this rulemaking is pending. Thank you to the staff working to improve wireless emergency alerts and responsible for this rulemaking, including Rochelle Cohen, David Kirshner, Nikki McGinnis, Erica Olson, Austin Randazzo, and James Wiley of the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau, Doug Klein, Bill Richardson, and Anjali Singh of the Office of General Counsel, Ed Kureg, Yongping Hao, and Rachel Kazan of the Office of Economics and Analytics, Charles Mathias and Catherine Schroeder of the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau, Jeremy Marcus of the Enforcement Bureau, and Chana Wilkerson of the Office of Communications Business Opportunities. We will now proceed to a vote on the item. Commissioner Carr,
Approve.
Commissioner Starks,
Approve.
Commissioner Simington.
Approve.
The chair votes aye. The item is adopted with editorial privileges as requested. Madam Secretary, please announce the next item on today's agenda.
Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners, item 3 on your agenda is an enforcement matter and will be presented by the Enforcement Bureau. Leon Egal, Acting Chief of the Bureau, will give the introduction.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Because this order is an enforcement matter, we are going to switch it up just slightly, as the Commission has done in past cases that involve similar presentations at an open meeting. And as with all open meeting items, the Bureau circulated this item to every commissioner at least 3 weeks ago. But there is a longstanding practice at the agency that we do not publicly disclose enforcement matters unless and until the Commission decides to take action. For these types of items, this means that the agency formally votes on the item, then here's a brief presentation from the Bureau before proceeding to any statements that the commissioners may have. This process ensures that these sensitive matters will not be publicly disclosed until the FCC has voted to take action. We are following that precedent here, so we will now proceed directly to a vote on item 3. Commissioner Carr,
Approve.
Commissioner Starks,
Approve.
Commissioner Simington.
Approve.
The chair votes aye. The item is adopted with editorial privileges should they be requested. Mr. Egal, please proceed with introducing item 3 on today's agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, Commissioners. Thank you for your consideration of this enforcement item before you today, which is a notice of apparent liability for forfeiture against Truphone, Inc. for failing to accurately disclose foreign ownership interests. Seated next to me today is Jeffrey G., Chief of the Investigations and Hearings Division. Also with us here virtually is Bill Knowles-Collette, an attorney advisor in the Investigations and Hearings Division, who I'd like to thank for the heavy lifting on this item under Jeffrey's excellent leadership. I also want to thank several members of the Enforcement Bureau's hardworking and tremendous staff, including Deputy Bureau Chief Keith Worgan, Assistant Bureau Chief Pamela Gallant, Legal Advisor Raphael Schneider, Investigations and Hearings Division Deputy Division Chief Colin Lee, Assistant Division Chief Rizwan Chowdhury, and Attorney Advisors Georgina Fagan and Jeff Brown, along with our colleagues in the International Bureau and the Office of General Counsel, all of whom contributed expertise and excellent work to get this NAL completed. I will now turn to Bill, who will give you specifics on this important enforcement action.
Thank you, Loyan. Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. This notice of apparent liability for forfeiture finds Truphone, Inc. apparently liable for violating Commission requirements that licensees wishing to transfer ownership of their common carrier radio licenses and certain Commission authorizations must obtain Commission approval prior to completing such transfers. In addition, we find that Truphone apparently violated our rules by failing to get prior Commission approval before a foreign entity acquired an interest exceeding 25% in the company. For these apparent violations, we propose a monetary penalty of $660,639. By way of background, in 2011, Truphone sought and received approval for Alexander Abramoff and Alexander Froloff to own more than 25% of the company. Commission approval was required because Abramoff and Froloff were foreign nationals who were dual citizens of Russia and Cyprus. Truphone submitted transfer of control applications related to the Abramoff and Froloff transactions. However, Abramoff and Froloff did not control the voting interests in the company after the transaction was completed. Instead, majority ownership of the Truphone Inc. resided with two trusts held for the benefit of Abramoff and Froloff. Truphone failed to disclose that the voting rights in Truphone's parent were actually held by the trustees of each trust, all of whom were Cypriot citizens. As a result, ultimate voting control of Truphone was held by foreign citizens that remained undisclosed to and unknown by the Commission. Truphone operated in this manner for 8 years before informing the Commission in a 2019 petition for declaratory ruling. The voting control of Truphone was held by these foreign trustees. In the 2019 petition, Truphone filed for permission to substitute a different entity named Aldon in its chain of ownership. Also in this 2019 petition, Truphone finally reported that it had discovered that its 2011 transfer of control applications and its 2011 petition for declaratory ruling erroneously reported who exactly controlled the company. In March of 2022, during the Enforcement Bureau's investigation, Truphone disclosed that the beneficiaries of the controlling trust changed again, and Alexander Abramoff and Alexander Froloff had been removed as the beneficiaries of their respective trusts. Their family members are the remaining trust beneficiaries. Also in this March update, Truphone stated that there were changes involving an entity now holding a minority stake in the company, Minden, which is owned and controlled by other foreign nationals, Roman Abramovich and his children. As a result of Truphone's incorrect 2011 petition, control of the company and its commission-issued licenses and authorizations passed to foreign entities and individuals that were not assessed for national security and law enforcement risks in violation of the Communications Act and our rules. Truphone's subsequent transactions resulted in additional foreign entities holding interests in Truphone. In our notice of liability, we propose to hold Truphone liable for willful or repeated violations of sections 214, 310B4, and 310D of the Communications Act, and the Commission's rules implementing those sections. For the reasons and the additional details laid out in the notice of liability, the Enforcement Bureau asks the Commission to adopt this item and to grant staff editorial privileges for conforming edits. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear comments from the bench. Commissioner Carr.
Thanks. No separate statement from me other than to express my thanks, Loyan, to you and to your team for all their hard work and their diligence on this. It's an important item, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Commissioner Starks.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Network security is national security. Even before Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the United States and other democracies around the world were reassessing their policies towards entities affiliated or otherwise subject to the jurisdiction of adversary states. The FCC has done so in several recent proceedings, of course, including our effort to rip and replace Huawei and ZTE equipment from U.S. networks, as well as our revocation of the Section 214 authorizations for certain Chinese telecom carriers. Today's enforcement action provides yet another example of how the Commission's actions must work to ensure that our networks are as secure as possible. This case involves a small Montana wireless carrier that has been indirectly owned by a group of Russian oligarchs since at least 2011. While it does not appear that these individuals are currently subject to any U.S. sanctions, they have been targeted with sanctions overseas. The licenses at issue have undergone a bewildering number of changes in ownership over these years, but at all times have been ultimately controlled by these oligarchs and their representatives. With the importance of the internet and the shifting national security environment facing our nation, protecting our communication networks has never been more critical. Given that even the smallest carrier has access to U.S. communications far beyond its own service area, I'm glad that we have strengthened our rules here regarding FCC and team telecom coordination on transactions involving foreign ownership. To that end, many of the transactions in this case that were not otherwise subject to FCC review and referral to team telecom would now receive such treatment. As this case demonstrates, foreign transactions involving domestic communication networks may present significant national security issues. Given the record in this case and the individuals involved, I encourage the International Bureau to consult with the relevant national security agencies regarding the current ownership of these licenses. And while today's proposed forfeiture is a welcome first step, I would support as well a close review of our foreign ownership and unauthorized transfer of control rules to ensure that we are adequately addressing any national security issues. My thanks, Chief, Mr. G, Mr. Colin Lee, and for IHD's hard work here. Thank you for this item.
Commissioner Simington.
Thank you. No statement other than to thank the Bureau for its hard work on this legally challenging and sophisticated item. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. In 2020, the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, which is part of the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee, issued a report on the threats that foreign-owned carriers pose to our communications networks. In the process, the subcommittee identified a problem that really requires attention. Across the federal government, there has not been enough oversight to safeguard our networks against evolving threats after the issuance of a license. After all, our interest in security does not stop with a one-time grant of authority. We need to regularly review what has come before to ensure that every service provider subject to the Communications Act complies with the law. At the FCC, we have taken this problem head on. We now have a clear process for revoking a foreign carrier's existing authorization when our national security colleagues recommend that we do so. You can see this in the actions we took with China Telecom Americas, China Unicom Americas, Pacific Networks, and ComNet. We are also working with our federal partners to establish a broader review of foreign carrier authorizations to provide service in the United States. As part of this effort, I directed the International Bureau to review all past grants of international Section 214 applications, and in the wake of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, we launched an internal assessment of Russian ownership of telecommunications interests in the United States. This notice of apparent liability is a product of that review. Through our increased oversight of past grants of authority, we discovered that TruePhone filed inaccurate information with this agency about its ownership structure and control. This violates our rules. It undermines our ability to assess foreign investment in licenses under the Communications Act. It denies us the information we require to make basic assumptions about national security. We make clear today that this is unacceptable, and we hold those responsible to account. I'm grateful to my colleagues, Commissioner Carr and Commissioner Starks, for working to strengthen this enforcement action. Thank you also to the staff who worked on this effort, including Jeffrey Brown, Rizwan Chowdhury, Loyan Igal, Georgina Fagan, Pamela Gallant, Jeffrey G., William Knowles Kellett, Kellen Lee, Keith Morgan, Deborah Ridley, and Raphael Snader from the Enforcement Bureau, Kathleen Collins, Kimberly Cook, David Kretchen, Farah Mosinenler from the International Bureau, Patrick Brogan, Virginia Metallo, and Michelle Schaefer from the Office of Economics and Analytics, and Terry Kavanaugh, Richard Mallon, Joel Rabinowitz, and William Richardson from the Office of General Counsel. All right. Thank you again to the Enforcement Bureau for your good work. Would any of my colleagues like to make an announcement at this time? I will first start with Commissioner Carr.
Thank you so much. I do have one, announce a acting legal advisor, Michael Nemchek. He is filling in for us while Danielle is on maternity leave and enjoying the time with her newborn baby. So we want to wish Danielle all the best with her growing family and welcome Michael to the team. He previously served as an intern in my office back in 2019. So we're very pleased that he is coming back to get another short stint with us. He is currently an honors attorney lawyer at the FCC in the Wireline Competition Bureau's Competition Policy Division, where he focused on numbering and all sorts of other interesting issues. Before entering the commission through the honors program, he received his bachelor's degree cum laude from Boston University and earned his JD cum laude from Catholic University Columbus School of Law. While at Catholic, he served as editor-in-chief of the Catholic University Journal of Law and Technology and earned a certificate from the Columbus School of Law's Law and Technology Institute. It's always great to have Catholic alums like myself join the office, and so we're really appreciative of him coming up and joining us for a little while here. So thanks to Michael.
Congratulations to Danielle and family. And now, Commissioner Starks.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. This is the last open meeting for our spring interns in my office, so I'd like to thank Graham, Ashley, Jahai, and Nick for their very hard work this semester. I wish them all the best on their exams coming up. I know at least one of them has the bar exam coming up as well, and hope they have great summers as well. We've also, of course, had some changes in the Starks office in the last few weeks. The announcement, of course, went out a couple weeks ago, but I wanted to use this opportunity to thank first my special advisor, Dr. Elisa Valentin. Truer titles are titles, especially here in DC, but she is both special and was truly an advisor to me, a trusted advisor. My media legal advisor, Diane Holland, for her hard work and dedication to my office as well. Her legal acumen and judgment on media and consumer issues is unparalleled. With their departures, I wanted to welcome Morgan Bodinarian and Justin Falb to the office. Morgan comes to us from Congressman Butterfield's office and will be helping on a number of things, including digital equity issues. Justin comes up from the Wireline Competition Bureau. Many of you know him. He's well known on national security matters. Excited to have him join the office as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And Diane's not going that far,
Yeah,
you know? We
this is
took her. She's the new deputy chief of the Wireline Competition Bureau. All right. Commissioner Simington.
Thank you very much. Like some of my colleagues, I'm saying goodbye to members of my office intern staff. I'd like to express my appreciation to Isabella Russo-Tiesi and Chris Huff. Isabella is leaving us to wrap things up and then go to Sidley Austin in New York City. So congratulations to her. She did her undergraduate degree at Fordham, and she's currently at Brooklyn. And likewise with Chris, the competition seems even more intense because he's got not one but two clerkships lined up. First on the Montgomery County Circuit, and then at the U.S. Court of Federal Claims. His undergraduate was from Kennesaw State in Georgia, and he is one of the Catholic law students that we were just hearing about from Commissioner Carr. They have done fantastic work, and I'm just so delighted to have the chance to acknowledge this in a public forum. In particular, I'd like to thank them for some of their work on orbital debris, where they have become, I don't think it's premature to say, experts, highly informed in the field, and have been very helpful to my office in helping us to develop and think about how to advance an agenda in that area. But really, they're just great at everything, and I'm so delighted they've all found wonderful opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Before we adjourn, I do have a few brief announcements. Ken Baker is retiring after 3 years as the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau's chief engineer. He's led the standards work in the Bureau and has provided technical advice and a bunch of complex rulemakings, including most recently discussions involving the deployment of equipment in the C-band. Ken leaves us for the wilds of Colorado. We wish him well in his retirement. And also, we've got Jocelyn Jazermi, who will soon be leaving the International Bureau's Telecommunications and Analysis Division. Although she's only been at the agency for a little over 2 years, she's worked on more than her fair share of high-profile proceedings. She was a lead attorney on the China Unicom proceeding and was heavily involved in the China Telecom Americas proceeding, both of which involve national security matters. She also contributed in our effort to standardize executive branch questions in national security reviews, and we wish you, Jocelyn, the best in your future endeavors. Okay, closer to home, my own office has some big changes. We are bidding farewell to Travis Littman, who is my friend and has been a terrific chief of staff, and I'm going to have more to say about that down the road. But we also welcome the uncommonly talented Narda Jones to the agency. She's my new chief of staff, and she comes to us from the Office of Science and Technology Policy at the White House. She's a familiar face in these parts, having worked at the agency before she joined the staff of Senator Cantwell on Capitol Hill. We also welcome back Priscilla Delgado Argyris, who will serve as my chief legal advisor. She knows the agency well, having served in my office when I was a commissioner. And I am thrilled to have her uncommon smarts and savvy back at the FCC. So while I'm at it, I'm also doing something I should have done a long time ago, which is taking away the acting titles from everyone else in my office. To be clear, I'm no longer acting, and neither are they. Madam Secretary, will you please announce the next date for the Commission's monthly agenda meeting?
The next agenda meeting of the Federal Communications Commission is Thursday, May 19th, 2022.
Until then, we stand adjourned.